Now here's our left chest design that I edited for my cap. Now as you can see, this line of lettering is really very tiny. These are only 5 millimeters and these are only 3, and that is much too small when I need to bring the whole design down, because I don't want this to be any more than 2 inches tall to go on the front of the cap that I'm going to put it on, and yet the design itself right now is almost 2 3/4 inches tall. So the first thing that we need to do is take this whole design. I'm going to take it off of this page and copy it onto another page. I'm going to do a Control C. I did a Control A first to select it all, and then I did a Control C to copy it, and I'm going to bring up a new page. Now I'm going to do Control V. That will paste that design right in the middle of that page. Now I'm going to hit W. That'll bring it right to the screen. And there it is. Click outside my box and there's my design. So I'm going to bring up my Control O, and I can see where that is. It's the last thing that I embroidered. So I'm going to take off my 3D, and I'm going to reduce this design down, but first I'm going to take this out and create another line of lettering with it. I'm just going to go over here to the side, and I'm going to do it on the same page so that I can sort of match it. It's not going to match because that was a digitized lettering, and I'm not going to do that. I'm going to click on my multi-line, and I'm going to type BSA Venturing Crew 246 and click OK. Okay, we know that it is not this block style, so I'm going to change this. I'm going to select both of my lines of lettering, and I'm going to change it to the Bradford. And it's much too long, so I'm going to have to shrink it up a little bit. I'll put my grids on so we can just quickly see how wide it is. It's 1, 2, it's over 3 inches long. That's too long. So I'm going to come up here, go to my segment settings, and change it to like 80%. Let's check and see how long that is. I really don't want it much more than a couple of inches. Let's try 75. That's a little bit better. We'll use that, or we'll see what it looks like when we get ready to put it on our cap. Okay, now I'm going to take this lettering right out of here, go up here and select my black. Now we know that this is the blue, and all of this is our lettering. You want to check to make sure that you're only selecting your lettering, because you don't want to pull anything else out. And we're just going to delete that. Now I'm going to select my entire design with the exception of this lettering. So I'm just going to select it all right here. I'm just going to do a Control S, Alright, excuse me, I'm just going to hit the shift key and go down here, and so I have all of these pieces selected in here by hitting the shift key. Now I'm going to resize this, and I don't want it any more than 2 inches, and 2 inches high is 50 millimeters, so I'm just going to type in 50 millimeters and click OK. Close this up, check my size, and it's just about 2 inches, maybe just a little smidge more, but not much. Okay, so now we're ready to put that on our cap grid. But before we do that, let's check and see how it's going to run. Okay, it's running, it's doing an underlay going in this direction. And then it's going from the top down. So we need to see if we can change that a little bit and go from the bottom up. It will be better if we can. If you don't, you're liable to get a bunch in here. Run this just a little bit faster. Now this is a blended design here. It doesn't really look like it on the screen, but it really is. Now I digitize this lettering going from the center out on the top line, but the bottom line is not doing that. So we need to change that bottom line of lettering to go from the center out. Okay, so our first step in doing that, first of all, we want to change our design and see if we can make it run from the bottom up. Now this is a complex fill that I created to use as a underlay, because I couldn't put any underlay underneath these two pieces because this is a blended fill and they always have to go from left to right if you're blending it, or whatever color your design is being blended from, that's the direction that you have to run all your stitching for your blends. But we can make it run from the bottom up. So instead of it running this one first, we can run the bottom first. So I'm going to move this part of the design up and check and see where it's starting. Now this is starting, turn our beads on here, it's starting up here, so we can change this to go from down here and finish down here. And this one, we can have it start down here and finish up here. And then this piece, we want it to start down here and finish up here. Now let's just check and see how that is running. Okay, see, now that is running right from the bottom up. and that will work out much better for that cap. Okay, now our next step is to change this lettering, and we'll quit that running here now. I think it's right, no, it's this one right here. Okay, so we want it to run from the F-I-T-T-E-R. Going to have it run this way first, and then we'll do the T, U, and the O. So I'm going to take these three letters, and I'm going to change the color of them, just so that I don't lose track. I'm going to change them to blue. Okay. Now we can see where we start here. Now we're going to move these up. We're going to pull this one up and move it right up here above the blue so that they go first. And now we're going to go down to our blue, and we want the T to be next. So I'm going to click on both pieces of the T and move that up. Actually, I'm going to move it up above this part, because this is the green part down here, and we want to do our lettering first. Okay, so this is next. Alright, this is my underlay. This is my manual underlay that I created. And this, of course, is my T. Now what I have to do is I have to make sure that they're going the right direction, which they are not. So this is my underlay, and we're going to start that up here. And it's a 2-ply. We can't have it run a 2-ply now, so I'm going to take that off and just have it do a run. And then I can control where it's going to finish, which is probably in here someplace, but I'll find out. Okay. So now we want this to start up here, and we want it to finish over here, the closest point to the U. But we have such a large space here because of the style of these letters. We're going to do an end lock and do a trim here, because that will look better. So I'm going to do an end lock and a trim. Then our next letter is our U. I'm going to bring that up. This part is first. So now we're going to bring this down here. I'll bring it up here. That's just the closest point. Again, it's 2-ply, so we're going to change that to just a run. We can't really move our start point without changing that first. And our stop point, yeah, we're going to bring it over here, because I think I want that to start over here, because if it doesn't, this is one of those letters that this side really needs to cover up this side, and if it doesn't, it's not going to really look good. So now this one is going to start here, and it's going to stop right where it is. And again, we're going to do an end lock, because remember what I said, I'll put this on 3D so you can see it. If this part was hanging out underneath this part, it just doesn't look as good. And our space is so short between those two letters that I'm just not going to worry about it. Normally I like to have them all tied in, but the way this is, I'm just not going to worry about it, because I want it to look good. So I'm going to put an end lock on it, a basic lock, and a trim. Let me get it off my 3D again. Okay, so now we're ready to go on to the O. and our O is starting right here, and it's fine. We can leave it start right there. That's fine. It'll start and stop right there, and then this one's going to start, and it's going to. I would rather have it stop down here. So we're going to do an end lock there and a trim. And then I'm going to take this and change it to the other color, which is the 23. So now there we are. Now that design will work just fine now for a cap, because you always want it running from the center out and from the bottom up. Not all caps will do this. I mean, you cannot what I mean to say is all left chest designs are not suitable to run on a cap, but sometimes they will be if you treat them right and if you resequence them. Now I'm going to show you how I created that zigzag line. I'm going to close this up. Now we do not know where our center point is on this because we have added this over here, so it changed our center point on our design. It's over here. So that's not going to do us much good. So I'm going to take this part of our design and put it onto our cap grid. Remember we made our cap grid, our permanent cap grid? Well, I'm just going to take this design right now and select all the pieces and do a Control C and bring up my cap grid. Okay, this is a blank cap grid. I'm going to do a Control V and paste my design right in. This is our cap grid that has no design in it whatsoever. Okay. Now as you can see, when we apply a design to it, the start and stop position comes up, and there are our lines for our the limits, and this is the one at the bottom. So we're just going to move this design up I'm going to get it put right in position. I'm going to turn off my beads so I can see better and try to get that right in the equal spot here, right in the center. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now there is our center, and you can see that our stop and start point stayed right where it was supposed to be. Now I'm going to create that zigzag line that goes down here, and it's really very simple to do. I'm going to start at the bottom. I'm going to take a run stitch, and I'm just going to start right down here, and I'm just going to do one of these just like this, and then I'll go right up that center seam, and then I'm going to bring it right back down. And there it is. Now you can run this design, and we have to resequence this and put that at the very beginning. So I'm going to move this up to the very beginning because we want that to embroider first. And you can do this, the color of the background. For this I would make it the ivory, or you could even do it the same color as the cap. It's your choice. But I always leave it an odd color when I create it, and then when I'm embroidering on caps I can make my choice at that time. So now we can go back to that other page, and pick up our lettering that we created, not this one that says Untitled. And just select this. Do Control C. Go to our cap grid. Do a Control V. And it ended up way down here. I'm going to close up this, and I'm going to bring this up. Make sure I got both of them selected. And I'm just going to move it up. Okay, and here is my outer limits out here. That is where that needs to be. Now if I decide that I want that a little bit smaller, I can make it smaller, but it looks like it's going to be fine right there. Or I could even take this crew, if I want to take this and bring it over to the edge, or I could make this bigger, whatever I wanted to do. Okay, and then on the other side I can put a design, or I don't have to. But I can just create something to fit in there. And I think I'll go up and create a date. And do this about 10 millimeters. Left click, right click, 2007 or 2008, whichever. Click OK. And let's see. Okay, now we're going to just move this. Get sure our hand's inside the box here. And move this on our outside point, which is right here. And there we go. There's our design on our permanent cap grid. And when you create that cap grid, like I said, it saves you a ton of time. And we can go through and add our pull comps and underlays. And I want to say right here that I really am not happy with the recipes that are in the Pulse software as far as the caps are concerned. I have found that if you use the caps recipe that there really isn't any underlay underneath that, and I think any letter you create needs underlay. So I usually use the woven fabrics recipe if I'm going to be using a recipe. So use the woven fabrics, and then sometimes you need to even increase your underlay on that, especially if you're on heavy woven, the cotton twill caps. If I apply my woven cap recipe to this, which I'm going to show you, just go up here and go down to Apply Style and do Woven Fabrics. Now if I check that, go to my segment settings, go to my underlay, and it has contour at 0.40, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And then my pull comp is set at 0.2. Again, that is good. Sometimes you only want to use a 0.1, but sometimes it's going to be a 0.2. And a lot of that depends on the style of the lettering that you're going to be using. If you're going to be using a real thin lettering, then you're going to even make that even higher. But if I go back over here to my underlay, and I want to show you this. If I'm going to be putting this on a very heavy twill cap, then I'm going to add perpendicular also. And put this at 0.50, which will bring it pretty close to the center. And depending on how large my lettering is, for this size lettering, I would put 2 lines down the center. For a smaller lettering, I would only put 1 line. But what that does is it will add 2 more lines of lettering down through the center, and it will really help to mash that twill down. Now, right here on the edge I see an issue. So if I go back to my lettering, or my underlay rather, and I go to my contour and change this to like 1.8, let's see what happens then. That shortens up my run stitch. That really still didn't do exactly what I wanted to do, so we need to bring that in just a little bit farther. So I'm going to bring that at 0.6 and see what that looks like. Okay, that worked. That brought it in farther, and now it's not sticking out because it was much too close to the edge. And you don't want any of your underlay to stick out. Now if that was a case where it was sticking out no matter what we did, I would take out my contour underlay. I'll close that up a minute. I want you to see this. Just see what it all looks like now. This is your contour, and see you're pretty close to the edge here. This line here is your contour. This one out here is your contour. These two in the center are your perpendicular. So if we take this and go back to our underlay and take all of the contour out and go to perpendicular, change this to let's try 1.8. Again, that shortens your stitch, and it helps it to curve it around more. And then click on this advanced button and change this to 3 lines or even 4 lines. We'll try 3 lines first and see what happens. Okay, it put 3 lines right down through the center. So if we change this to 4, it's going to give us pretty much the same effect that our contour and our perpendicular together gave us, but a little farther in from the edge. See, that would work great for that particular lettering. You just have to learn to adjust your settings for whatever type of fabric that you're working on, and of course the style that you're using. The same with this one over here. I would have, if I was actually doing this, I would have done both of them at the same time, but my underlay settings on this one would probably be a little different because the lettering is so much smaller. And I definitely would not use any contour on this. It would have to be all perpendicular. But there is our cap design that we changed from a left chest design, and it will work out just fine on a cap now that we have made all of our changes.